During World War I, something curious happened. Fishing was drastically reduced. Fewer boats, fewer nets, less fish caught. At this point, one would expect a very simple outcome. Less fishing means more fish. But that's not what happened. When biologists and statisticians started looking closely at the data, something profoundly counterintuitive emerged. The smaller fish, the prey, actually decreased. Meanwhile, the large predators increased. It's a real paradox. If humans fish less, why do the prey become rarer? This is exactly the type of question that landed on the desk of Lotka Volterra, one of the most important Italian mathematicians of the 20th century. Welcome to Behind Math. Let's get started. Volterra started from a very simple yet powerful idea. If we want to describe how a population evolves over time, the first thing to understand is not how many individuals exist at a certain moment, but what determines their growth. Let's start with the prey. If the prey were completely isolated, with no predators, their number would grow proportionally to how many individuals are already there. The more prey exist, the more births occur. The same reasoning applies to the predators, but with a crucial difference: the sign. If the predators were left completely alone, with no food, their population would decrease. Then comes the crucial observation. Prey and predators do not live in separate worlds. They meet. Every time a prey meets a predator, the prey population decreases, while the predators benefit from the encounter. Volterra imagined these encounters as random events and made a strong assumption. The number of encounters is proportional to both the number of prey and the number of predators. Each encounter is a loss for the prey, but a gain for the predators. This is how the Lotka Volterra equations were born, a mathematical model describing the dynamics of a predator-prey system. Let's talk briefly about the coefficients in these equations. The parameter A represents the natural growth rate of the prey, that is, how quickly they increase in the absence of predators. The parameter B measures how efficient the predators are at capturing prey, essentially how often these encounters result in the death of a prey. The parameter C represents the natural mortality of predators in the absence of food. If it is large, predators disappear quickly. Finally, D measures how effectively the captured prey are converted into new predators. At this point, a natural question arises. Okay, the model is beautiful, but how do we solve these equations? For anyone familiar with differential equations, the first step is clear. We need to set an initial condition, that is, decide how many predators and how many prey exist at the starting time. And then, well, here comes the bad news. These equations do not have an explicit analytical solution. They are nonlinear, which makes them too complicated to solve by hand. But it's not time to give up. Mathematicians are notoriously stubborn, and when an exact formula does not exist, numerical methods come to the rescue. These tools allow us to approximate the solutions step by step. Among the most famous and powerful are Runge-Kutta methods. In this video, I decided to use Runge-Kutta, and on the screen you can see the Python code I wrote. I won't go into the technical details of the method. What really matters is to observe what happens to the system. Here we see the solutions of the equations for different values of the parameters. And the first thing that stands out is the oscillatory behavior. Prey increase, then start to decrease as predators grow. When prey becomes scarce, predators decline, and the cycle starts again. Until now, we've looked at the populations as a function of time, but we can take a further step. We can eliminate time and plot one population directly as a function of the other. This space is called the phase plane. In this plane, each point represents a state of the system, a specific combination of prey and predators. As time passes, the point moves and traces a trajectory. It's a powerful representation because it shows the direct relationship between the two species without the noise of time. At this point, it's worth pausing on the initial conditions. What happens if we start with 0 prey and 0 predators? Obviously, nothing happens. There is no one to grow or die. But there is another interesting case. There exists a precise combination of prey and predators for which the system remains stationary, even if the populations are not 0. These are called equilibrium points. Mathematically, these are states where all derivatives are 0. If the system starts there, it stays there forever. In the classical Lotka Volterra model, there are 2 equilibrium points. The first is trivial, no prey, no predators. The second is much more interesting and is given by a precise combination of the model's parameters. At this point, prey births and predator deaths are perfectly balanced by the encounters between the 2 species. Of course, all of this relies on very strong assumptions. The system is closed, so there is no migration. Prey grow exponentially in the absence of predators. Predators die exponentially in the absence of prey. And finally, all parameters are constant in time. No seasons, no diseases, no pollution. These assumptions make the model mathematically tractable, but limit its ability to describe real ecosystems. And this is exactly where we can return to the initial question. Why, during the war, did reduced fishing lead to fewer prey and more predators? The Lotka Volterra model shows that populations depend not only on humans, but also on internal system interactions. By reducing fishing, humans removed an artificial predator that previously kept the large predators in check. Without this control, predators increased and captured more prey, reducing the population of smaller fish. If we want, we can even include fishing in the model. We just need to add a term representing artificial mortality of prey. Let's look at some interesting functions, h. This term can be constant if we imagine always removing a fixed fraction of the population. We can consider h of t x equals k times x, meaning it depends on the amount of available fish, making the model more realistic. We can also let it vary over time to simulate fishing seasons using sine functions, or even combine both ideas. All these extensions change the behavior of the system. Starting from simple assumptions and a few equations, mathematics allows us to understand why an ecosystem can respond in surprising ways, even to small changes. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on Behind Math.